Hello, welcome to my channel, and to my subscribers, welcome back. Today we will be making homemade banana pudding, and when I say homemade, we're not using that Jell-O instant mix. We're making this entirely from scratch like your grandma did back in the day. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start off by separating our egg yolks. Now for this recipe I use 3 egg yolks, so I'm going to separate those and place those into a bowl. And once you get done separating the egg yolks, I know some folks like to make their banana pudding with the meringue. You would use the egg whites, which you'll see in a cup momentarily, in order to make the meringue for the banana pudding. And we're going to finish that one last egg. And then once we place that one last egg in the bowl, what we're going to do is we're going to give it a quick stir in order to beat the eggs a little bit. This will make it easier to combine the egg yolks with the dry ingredients, which we'll do in a little bit. By the way, I am using extra large eggs for this as well. So now we're going to head over to the stove, and I'm using the 3-quart saucepan. I'm going to start by adding 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of iodized salt. Then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar. And I'm going to mix all of the dry ingredients until there are few to no lumps. You want to try to get rid of as many lumps as you can. And now I'm going to clean up the mess that I made. Splash a little bit of flour everywhere. Now I'm going to add the egg yolks to the saucepan. Make sure to get them all in there. Now I'm going to add 1/2 cup of it, or 1/2 can of evaporated milk. I'm going to start with 1/2 can because we're going to first whisk the milk with the dry ingredients until everything is good and smooth. We're going to do that before we add the rest of the evaporated milk. In total, we're going to be adding 2 cans of evaporated milk. So once we finish adding that initial 1/2 can, we're going to add the remaining 1.5 cans and continue to whisk until all of the ingredients are combined. So that was the last can there. We're going to whisk it once more, again, to ensure everything's well combined. All right, now we're going to warm the saucepan on medium heat. And we're going to immediately whisk the liquid briskly, and we're not going to stop. We're going to do this the entire time. And this is to prevent the eggs from scrambling. If you stop stirring, there is the risk that they can coagulate, and then you'll end up with lumpy pudding, which no one wants. So keep stirring and do not stop. And if you need something to pass the time, I can certainly recommend some great songs. Leave a comment below if you would like to hear my recommendations. And by the way, the reason we added flour and eggs to this is they act as a thickening agent to thicken the custard as it cooks. So 10 minutes have passed, and you notice I'm still stirring briskly, and the liquid is starting to thicken, but you have to be careful here. This is what I call fool's custard. If you were to take it off the heat now and add it to the pudding, it would still be runny. So I advise to continue stirring it briskly for additional time until it reaches your desired thickness. I like to continue stirring it and heating it up for an additional 7 to 8 minutes, which is what I'm going to do. So we're going to keep on stirring it, and by this point an additional 7 minutes have passed, and look how good and thick that custard is. That is the type of consistency that you want for your pudding. So I'm going to keep stirring it a bit longer. And I'm going to stick the spoon in there, and that's exactly how the pudding or the custard should look on your spoon once you stick it into the pot. It should stick on the spoon just like that. So I'm going to keep on stirring, and I'm going to remove it from the heat. Now this point is critical as well. So once you remove it from the heat, the pot is still going to be hot. You notice all the steam coming out. So I advise that you continue to stir it briskly for an additional 2 to 3 minutes until the steam has subsided and the pot has cooled off. If you stop stirring immediately after you take the pot off the heat, there's still the risk that your eggs in the custard can scramble. So that's why I advise that you continue to stir for an additional couple minutes after taking it off the heat. So now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter to the custard, and we're going to whisk that in with the custard until it's well combined. It's going to take a moment to melt into the custard. And now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1 teaspoon of banana extract. And I'm going to whisk those into the custard until they're well combined as well. All right, they should be good and combined now. So we're going to allow the custard to rest and continue cooling for up to 15 minutes. But while we do that, we're going to move on to making our homemade whipped cream. So first I'm going to start by adding 1/4 cup of powdered sugar to a 3-quart mixing bowl, 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, and also a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm using a hand mixer for this. You can also use a stand mixer. And we're going to mix on medium speed for approximately 2 minutes. That's about how long it should take for the whipping cream to become whipped cream. And as you can see, the cream is thickened up and you see the soft peaks. That's how the cream should look. It should have a very marshmallowy, pillowy texture, exactly like you see on the screen. All right, so we're going to set that bowl aside. And next we're going to cut up our bananas. Now for this recipe, I advise using anywhere between 2 and 3 ripe bananas. These are large bananas, so I'm only going to use 2 in this video. And you're going to cut these bananas on a clean surface. So I'm peeling the bananas right now. And once I finish peeling them, I'm going to use my knife to slice them up into smaller pieces. So we're going to cut off the ends, and then we're going to slice up the bananas into smaller chunks, such as shown on the screen. All right, then we're going to repeat the same thing with the second banana as well. So we're going to bring that second banana over. Going to peel it. All right, then we're going to take our knife and slice it as well. Slice off those ends. All right, and there we go. I'm going to slice this banana. All right, then once we've finished slicing the bananas, we're going to set them aside. So I'm going to place them into a bowl and then going to set them aside just for a moment. Get all of those banana slices in there. All right, get all of them in there. One just missed the bowl. Going to put that back in there. Then I'm going to move that bowl over. For this recipe, I use an 8x8 baking dish, and we're going to layer the banana pudding, starting with the vanilla wafers for the first layer. Then we're going to add the banana slices for the second layer, and then after that, we're going to add the custard. Now, I will say this. You see how that custard looks while I'm adding it? Your custard should be thick. It shouldn't be runny. I've seen some recipes out here where the custard is looking like soup or melted ice cream or milk. And let me tell you, if the custard isn't as thick as you see on the screen right now, I don't want it. You can keep it. Your custard should be as thick like pudding, because that's what we're eating. We're eating pudding. So we're going to evenly spread the custard until it forms the third layer. I'm using a plastic spatula for that. And I'm just going to repeat the steps. So as you can see, I'm adding a second layer of vanilla wafers, and I'm adding a second layer of banana slices, and then finally I'm going to add the rest of my custard and form a second layer of the custard. And we're just going to spread that custard around until it forms an even layer. By the way, if you don't own the type of spatula that I'm using, you can also use an icing spatula, and even a knife or a spoon would work as well to spread that custard around. So now we're going to add our whipped cream on top of the second layer of custard, and then once we finish adding that, we're going to evenly spread it around as well until it completely covers the pudding. You want to ensure that the custard and the wafers and the banana slices are not visible. And now we're going to add our final layer of vanilla wafers, and this is for decoration, this step here. And what I also like to do is I like to crush the remaining vanilla wafers in the box into crumbs. And I'm using a food processor for this. If you don't have a food processor, you can use a wooden mallet or even a rolling pin. You just place them in the storage bag and crush them inside the storage bag. All right, and that is how the crumbs should look, as you see on the screen. And now I'm sprinkling the crumbs on top of the pudding. Now this is totally optional, but I do this for garnish as it makes the pudding look pretty, in my opinion. And I'm just brushing a little bit of the excess crumbs off of the crackers. And then what I'm also doing as well is cleaning up the dish a little bit for presentation, so people don't see all of that gunk on the side of the dish. Alright, so wiping the last little bit off with paper towel. And that is how the pudding should look once you're finished decorating and layering it. So we're going to set it back on the table, and now we're going to cover it. I'm covering it with foil. You can also cover it with plastic wrap. And what we're going to do now is sit it in the refrigerator. I recommend chilling this for a minimum of 4 hours, but preferably overnight for the best result. And now that we removed it from the refrigerator, it's ready to serve. And I'm going to use my cooking / serving spoon to cut a slice out of there. And this recipe really offers the best of both worlds. One, you don't have to turn on the oven with it being summertime, which makes it a great summertime treat. But also, you don't have to worry about all of those artificial ingredients or preservatives you find in the Jell-O pudding mix. That's really what's awesome about this recipe. And we're just adding it to our serving dish now. And you can jazz it up in the serving dish however you like. For the purpose of this video, all I'm going to do is add a vanilla wafer and a banana slice on top to make it look pretty. But it is entirely up to you. And I hope you enjoyed watching this. And if you would like to see more of this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.